It is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, February 10th, and I am calling this meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Here.
Councilmember Clarici?
Here.
Mayor Gottberg?
Here.
Vice Mayor No?
Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Here.
We have no ceremonial matters tonight, so we will move on to the closed session report. City Attorney Ibrahimi.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg. The council met in closed session on 2 items. There was no public comment in advance of that. There was no reportable action on the first one, and council provided direction on the second.
Right. We are going to move on to adoption of the agenda. I did have one request on this to move item 11, our public hearing, up before our ordinances, item 10. So we have one public hearing tonight, and just given that our ordinances may be long, to do that.
I'll move the agenda with that thing.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I see none. All right, we're going to move on to item number 6, brief comments by the City Council. We'll start with Councilmember Yarborough.
I have none.
Carter?
I have none.
No?
I have none.
You want to?
I'm really sorry. I have a fun one. I went to, let's see, on Friday, I think? Friday. I went to Gold Trail School because they had the reveal of the bus rap, WRAP rap competition. And it goes out to the junior high schools in the area, and everybody can send in. And basically what they do is they ask the kids to make up, and they have a theme, and to design something that would go on the side of a bus. And then they pick a winner. We get to vote. The Transit Committee and the Transportation Commission, I believe. And I don't know, there might be other people voting too. But I got a chance to vote. And so they had the winner, and it was a student at Gold Trail. So I went there, and they had the entire student body. And yeah, so it was quite something. And there were actually, they had 6 people from that school in the competition, 6 very nice young ladies. And I didn't write her last name down, but it was Hadley. So if you know somebody named Hadley who's like in the 8th grade at Gold Trail School, there's probably more than one, but congratulate them because they won. And it's very nice. And you will see it out and about, and you'll see it from previous years because until they retire the buses, the rap stays on. They've done this like 3 or 4 years in a row, and it's really a cool competition. And kudos to all the kids that are involved, and it was a nice, fun, uplifting experience. So that's what I did on Friday. Thank
Great.
you.
I attended the California Government Innovation Showcase down in Sacramento, which was heavily focused on artificial intelligence this year. So kind of interesting on what the state might be using artificial intelligence for going forward. Would any member of the public like to comment on our comments? Great, I see none. We will go to the consent calendar. Anybody like to pull anything from the consent calendar tonight? All right. Would any member of the public like to comment on any item that is on our consent calendar, item number 7? All right, I see none, so I'll bring it back to the council for a motion.
I'll move the consent calendar.
I will second that motion.
Great. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to item number 8, non-agenda items. So this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter that is not on the agenda. So things that are not listed anyplace else on this agenda tonight. That is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. We're prohibited from acting on these items, and you will be limited to 3 minutes. And, please don't make personal attacks on anybody when you make your comments. Be nice. Great. Does anybody want to come up and make comments on anything that is not on our agenda tonight? All right. Wow, that's a first. No public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any written communications, item 8.2?
Yes, Madam Mayor. One item was received today, copies of which are on the back table for the public. It's regarding item 10, excuse me, it was 10.2. Thank you. And also, it is posted on the website for those listening at home.
All right, great. So we adjusted our agenda, so we're going to move on to item 11.1. Consider approving the new EID pass-through water FCCs as a separate component of the city water's CICs as presented. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg, members of the council. So the city, like other cities in California, collects a capital improvement charge for each new water connection in the city. We also collect a facility capacity charge on behalf of EID, and that money is transferred to El Dorado Irrigation District. At its meeting held on February 23rd, 2016, the City Council approved a new 5-year water supply agreement with EID. The agreement has been amended twice, and the second amendment was approved by the City Council on May 28, 2024, which is attached to your staff report. The second amendment approved the current water FCCs. EID has completed a new nexus study for its water FCCs in late 2024, which included a district-wide approach. The city and EID negotiated new water FCCs for the city and reached a tentative agreement on the new FCC formula in late 2025. So tonight, we have from EID, we have Patrick Calvas, who's the engineering manager from EID, to present the FCCs tonight. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patrick.
Dave. Good evening, council members. As Dave mentioned, my name is Patrick Calvis. I'm an engineering manager, specifically of development services for EID. And tonight I'll be giving a brief overview on our facility capacity charges between the city and EID. So briefly, before I get into it, I'll give a roadmap overview of what I'm going to talk about. So first, we'll look at what is a capacity charge, what projects do they fund at the district, at EID. We'll take a look at the district FCC process. As Dave mentioned, we underwent a comprehensive study in late 2024 that kind of precipitated this. I'll talk about the district and city agreement, the water supply agreement, and then we'll look at the money. We'll look at the current charge and the future charges. So starting with what is a facility capacity charge, or FCC. These fees can go by different names at different utilities. Sometimes they're referred to as hookup charges or connection charges. At EID, we call it the FCC. And what it is, it's a capacity charge that's assessed to new development to ensure that growth pays for growth. That moniker is really kind of the take-home here, ensuring that growth pays for growth. It ensures that there's equitable recovery of capital costs that the district incurs to provide future customers with capacity. That phrase, equitable recovery, really means that all costs for new development are not borne by existing ratepayers, that they're paid for by developers. Actually, if you can go back just briefly. So it's generally a two-component charge. There's a buy-in component and an incremental component. The buy-in component can be thought of as buying into existing system capacity that's already there. And then the incremental component is kind of the flip side of that coin, paying for future additional capacity. The district, we use a hybrid approach, so a combination of the two. So looking at projects that FCCs fund, really what these do is provide capacity. That can be transmission main capacity, storage capacity, treatment capacity, anything in that realm. So a couple examples. The first image on the top there shows a section of our Pleasant Oak main that runs from Reservoir C to Reservoir 7. So this is a project that's planned to go into design in early 2027. And then the photo on the bottom there is a picture of our Reservoir 1 water treatment plant. That's going to be increasing capacity, treatment capacity, and that's planning for design in beginning of 2028. So as I mentioned, in 2024, the district undertook a comprehensive facility capacity charge update study. That's what precipitated why I'm here tonight. We do aim to undertake a study every 6 years. However, prior to 2024, the last study that was done was in 2013. In addition to that comprehensive update that really does look to ensure that all costs to increase to have adequate capacity are captured in the charge. Each year, the FCCs are escalated to basically track with inflation. And that escalation applies to both EID's retail customers as well as the city and our wholesale customer. So as you're all well aware, the city is EID's only wholesale customer. And so pursuant to the water supply agreement, efforts to update the FCC began in late 2024, and we worked together throughout 2025 to come to a mutual agreement. And then just a note on logistics, how the district receives our FCC disbursements from the city. We receive those quarterly, so 4 times throughout the year. Looking at that water supply water supply agreement that I mentioned on the previous slide, that is the agreement that governs both the water rates as well as the FCC charges. So tonight we're just talking about the FCC charges, but that is the same agreement that governs both rates and charges. There is, of course, a longer history than January of 2016, going back to 1999 and likely further between the two parties. But I really just want to focus on the recent history tonight. So in January 2016, the current version of the agreement between the city and EID was approved. In November 2020 and June 2024, the first and second amendments were approved. And really what those amendments did were 2 things. They extended the timeline of the agreement, but they also incorporated and updated rates from a cost of service analysis that EID did. And so those were all focused on rates, the water rates, and tonight in 2026, we're looking at the FCC schedule. Just to note, that agreement is set for expiration at the end of 2028, and if it is not renegotiated at that point, it does default to annual extensions. All right, so getting into kind of the meat of the presentation here. So I've got 2 slides, both on the current fee and then as well as what we mutually agreed to for the proposed fee. Just to note, when I refer to current fee, I'm talking about 2024 because that is really what the current fee that's collected by the district is. We worked throughout 2025 to come to an agreement, but when I'm referring to a current fee, it's 2024. So the district EID, we have a retail FCC that we charge to all of our customers that we serve to the water meter to the house, and then we have the city FCC that the city collects for us. So in 2024, the city FCC was just north of $18,000, and the EID retail FCC was $25,000. That difference between the 2 fees is primarily due to 2 reasons. So number 1 is that a portion of general district operations that don't support water supply, so for example, EID provides wastewater service, recycled water service. So the portion of our general district operations, for example, vehicles in the headquarter building that don't support water supply is excluded from the city FCC rate. And then additionally, all water lines that are 6 inches and smaller are excluded from that as well. Because the district recognizes that that size of water main doesn't provide that much transmission capacity to the city. So given those 2 exclusions, you can see the difference in the cost between EID's retail FCC and the city's FCC, just under $7,000 and about 27%. Now, when we look at the 2025 numbers, those were proposed as a result of that study that we undertook. So the 2024 study recommended that in 2025, the proposed city FCC would be just north of $29,000, and then the proposed EID retail FCC just north of $34,000. That EID retail FCC is the current FCC as of last year. So you can see quite a large jump for both of those numbers, and you can see as well that the difference, both in the dollar amount and the percentage between the 2, did shrink a little bit. So if you keep your eye on the 29,195 number, and then we jump to the next slide, I'll go over the agreement we came to. So you can see now that number, we arrive at that number in 2029. So what we agreed to do was gradually step the increase to allow for a more gradual increase of the fee, essentially. A couple things to note here. So the 2026 number has inflation included. The 2027, 8, and 9 numbers do not, as those years, the inflation is not yet known. From 25 to 26, the inflation escalator was 3.2%, and that same percentage is applied against the EID retail FCC as well as the city FCC that you're seeing here. Yeah, and that's basically what I was going to present. The only thing I'll say is, call attention to a slight difference in the timing, right? So I mentioned in December of 2028 is when the agreement will sunset, and then this exhibit reflects a sunset in 2029. There's a couple ways that this can be resolved. Obviously, if the agreement just defaults to the annual extension, this same exhibit will be incorporated, or perhaps the two parties will come together and renegotiate agreement. All righty, thank you. Take some questions.
Are there questions from the council? No. All right, none. So if that's the case, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. So if any member of the public would like to comment on item 11.1 related to the EID pass-through rates for new developments, this is your opportunity to do so. All right, I see none, so we will bring it back to the council for motion and action here.
Is there no other comment?
I don't know.
I'll move, I'll move the agenda item.
I'll second.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, now we're going to move on to item number 10, ordinances, starting with 10.1, consideration of zoning ordinance amendment 2503, Title 10, Section 10-4-17, sign regulations to allow regulated A-frame sandwich board signs on a defined area on Main Street and finding that the project is exempt from SEQA. Ms. Kendrick.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg and members of the City Council. Carol Kendrick, Director of Development Services. Tonight I'm presenting item 10.1, which is the ZOA 25-03, which proposes a targeted amendment to our sign regulations in Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 10-4-17 of the Placerville Municipal Code. This would create a limited exception allowing regulated A-frame or sandwich board signs on public sidewalks along a defined portion of Main Street in our downtown. Our current ordinance, in place since May of 2002, prohibits temporary freestanding signs citywide, including A-frames and sandwich boards, to safeguard public safety and prevent obstructions in the right-of-way, and protect the historic and aesthetic character that defines Placerville as a welcoming Gold Rush foothill community. In February 2024, the council directed staff to explore updates to better support our downtown businesses amid evolving needs. We've seen growing unauthorized use of these signs on Main Street, which prompted complaints and inconsistent enforcement. Rather than continue with a blanket prohibition, this proposal offers a balanced, regulated path forward, one that boosts economic vitality of our Main Street merchants while preserving our historic charm and ensuring pedestrian safety. The proposed exception applies to our core downtown area. We have, I have listed generally from Canal Street to Cedar Ravine, but the Planning Commission discussed the area at length, so that is open to the City Council to discuss. This would include strict standards developed with input from the Planning Commission, the Merchants on Main, and public comments. It would include an annual sign permit of about $50 with applications showing design, material placement, and content. This would be a nominal fee. I did calc out how much it would cost in staff time. It would be approximately $197 of staff time to process these, but we want to gain compliance and make it easier for our merchants to apply for these signs. One sign per building at any time, even with multiple tenants, allowing rotation under a single shared permit to reduce clutter. A maximum size of 6 square feet per side, using durable non-plastic materials like wood, metal, or chalkboards. And they would have no illumination, digital elements, or reflective surfaces. Content is limited to daily specials, menus, or temporary promotions. No permanent business names or off-site ads would be allowed. Placement must be adjacent to the building facade within 12 inches with a guaranteed minimum 48-inch clear pedestrian pathway to comply with ADA and PROAG standards. If the sidewalk cannot accommodate this, no permit would be issued. Signs displayed only during business hours, removed at closing, stable against wind, and no obstructions to doors, utilities, or sight lines. They would have to be in full compliance with fire codes, and signs must be kept in good repair or face immediate removal. These rules draw from successful models in other historic towns with adjustments for Placerville's narrower sidewalks. Notably, while some comparable communities like Grass Valley have explored or allowed limited A-frames, I did want to point out a housekeeping item. Nevada City does not allow sandwich board or A-frame signs, and it's explicitly prohibited in their to maintain their strict aesthetic controls. Our proposal is more permissive but carefully tailored to avoid visual clutter concerns raised there. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 6th, incorporating feedback on the boundaries, obstacles like tree wells and sign rotation. They recommended approval by a vote of 3-1 with 1 abstention. We also engaged with the merchants on Main and addressed their questions and refined the draft accordingly. Public notice was ran in the Mountain Democrat, and as of the report preparation, no additional comments were received beyond the hearing. This amendment aligns with our general plan goals for economic development and historic preservation. It qualifies for a CEQA exemption under the common sense rule, no significant environmental effects, and could generate modest permit revenue while potentially reducing code enforcement complaints. So at this time, staff recommends that the council conduct the public hearing and receive input, find the project exempt from CEQA, and introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance as drafted with any refinements from tonight's discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or review key provisions in more detail. And that concludes my presentation.
Are there questions from the council to staff?
Actually, I have one question. Is there any mention of the placement in bulb outs on the road? And I just missed it.
So the placement has to be adjacent to the building.
Okay, great. So that would obviously,
prohibit it
okay.
in the bulb outs.
I don't have a question, but for the benefit of public comment, I wanted to make a couple of suggestions. One is that we consider expanding a little bit from Canal to Mosquito. There are a number of businesses on Upper Main that do utilize sandwich boards. And so I'd make that suggestion that we expand the scope of this a little bit, at least to Mosquito. And then the other thing that I would like for us to maybe talk about is buildings that have 4 or more businesses, to allow them to have 2 signs instead of just the 1. That way, I think we're materially putting them at a disadvantage to their neighbors, and I think we're kind of setting them up for for them having to negotiate the times that their signs are out. I think it'd be a lot easier if they were allowed to have 2 signs if there were 4 more businesses in one building. So those are my 2 things, just like I said, for the benefit of public comment, the 2 things I was thinking of.
Yeah, I just have a quick question on the no permanent business identification. I think that just needs to be defined a little bit better. I mean, most places will have the name of the business on the sign.
We can clarify that. I did get some questions about that from merchants, so you would be allowed to have the sign, but you have to have your main identification sign on the building, so a sandwich board cannot be your primary identification.
Yeah, if we could clarify that language, that'd be great. And then the continuous 48-inch wide clear pedestrian pathway. I do know that there are some areas in town that we won't have that. Does the planning department plan on having a list of those buildings that they know that will not work? So if somebody comes in to get a permit issued, then you know immediately that, like, hey, unfortunately, we can't issue that building because you do not have enough sidewalk space to do so.
Development services staff and engineering can work together on getting that together.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I also had a thought related to the area, and part of this comes from looking at what other cities was doing, but we do have a downtown commercial business district zone, and so rather than saying Main Street from this street to this street, saying the downtown commercial district zone. And so it's quite close to that. Essentially, right now, you're like losing some of the folks that are west of Canal and some of the side street folks, so like, there's some folks that are like not directly on Main Street, but they are downtown business district, and I didn't necessarily want to like exclude them. So that was kind of my thought on maybe limiting the area to like a zone. Also, that makes it super clean because it's like, it's on their titles, it's on a map, like you know if you're in the zone or not, versus kind of like trying to define it by streets.
The CBD district?
Yeah. And then I did have, I'm gonna state for the public, because you know, my main concern here is that the accessibility, and like right now we have an obstacle course going on Main Street where if like you're in a wheelchair or a stroller, you're a group of people trying to pass another group of people, it's quite difficult to do so. So I'm open to like a large range of solutions to address that problem, but that's like the main problem that I personally want to see addressed. So if you have ideas ranging from anywhere like size and placement to whether they go on sidewalks or only private properties versus making signs that aren't A-board frames but letting people put chalkboard signs like mounted on a wall, I'm very open to ideas, but like that's the problem that I personally would like to see us solve. So I just figured I'd put that out there for the public if you have ideas on that you want to throw out when you're talking.
Since we're all throwing in our 2 cents, I'll go ahead and do that as well. I watched the Planning Commission meeting for this item, and what really resonated with me is that there's no way to make this fair for all merchants. You know, we have garbage cans in different places, we have signs in different places, somewhere the sidewalk's narrow, somewhere it's not. A couple people actually don't have parking spaces in front of their businesses, although most do. So I was really struck by that. I thought if I was going to approve this, I don't know how we say you can only do this in the downtown businesses, but you can't do it on Broadway in Placerville. I just can't wrap my head around that. And then I took some time on Sunday and Monday to look at the signs, because a lot of people have them out now. And you know, when there were only a couple signs, it didn't seem so bad. But now that I can actually see what it looks like having sign after sign after sign after sign, it reminds me of what we talked about on the trail. When you have sign proliferation, you start to go sign blind, right? They're not catching your attention anymore. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it really just looked cluttered, you know? And I'm imagining you're walking down with your spouse or a family or whatever. 4 feet is a pretty narrow spot to try to squeeze through, and it just looked like an obstacle course, and I didn't think it made it look like an attractive place to walk. So I'm willing to listen to the public, but at this point, I don't think that this is a good ordinance for our city. That's where I'm at right now.
Any further comments from the council before we open it to public comment? So we're going to open this up to public comment. You'll be limited to 3 minutes for your comments. So if you would like to talk on item 10.1, please come to the podium now and provide us with your comments.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville. Good evening. I really don't like these cardboard signs that they put up everywhere. I agree with Councilmember No that it starts to look like an obstacle course. And if you are coming one direction and somebody else is coming the opposite way, trying to pass and get past these signs, is a problem. And they don't always sit flash against a building. Sometimes they're clear out in the middle of the sidewalk or clear out on the bump outs, and it looks terrible. And if you don't walk as well as you used to, they really do become an obstacle course. It becomes a problem to go downtown. Whatever happened to window shopping? It used to be, if you wanted to know what was in a business, you went and looked in the window and you looked at what was posted on the window. And that would tell you what you wanted to know. And you didn't have these A-frame signs sticking out everywhere. And I think they're a problem. I think they need to go, period.
Good evening. Alan Ming, owner of a business on Main Street and also board member for Merchants on Main. So I've had the opportunity to talk to some of the merchants that couldn't attend tonight or weren't able to attend the merchant meeting that Carol attended. And so I wanted to start by first extending my appreciation for recognizing the uniqueness of Main Street and that it is unique to Placerville and being more of a walking district where we do have people walking up and down the streets. Also acknowledging the challenge of the one size fits all. Unfortunately, I think as council commented, there really isn't a solution that works for everybody, specifically the multi-tenanted buildings. I've had kind of the unique experience of being in Creekside Place, which is, as most of you know, a courtyard. And we often got feedback that people would have never found us had we not had an A-frame sign. And then now we are out with a storefront on Main Street, but we are kind of past Creekside, past the crosswalk there. And with Oddfellows not having occupancy yet, and the Mustard and Ketchup building and the office building up near us, it becomes kind of a dead zone up there. And we constantly see people hit the crosswalk at Creekside and Black Oak. They'll cross there, kind of peek up the street, and then just go back towards the bell tower. So even though we have street frontage, we have seen somewhat of a benefit of having A-frame signs out there that catch people's attention and draw them on up farther on Main Street. I also want to thank Carol for addressing some of the questions that we had, so I'll kind of keep it specific to, I think, the main issue. I also wanted to let council know that we have extended the Merchants on Main zone from basically Hog Wild up to Mosquito Flat Road. So we've extended beyond the business district that was defined, and that's just kind of an FYI. So I think the main issue, again, that council has brought up is the multi-tenant buildings and how we can address those. I certainly understand the issue when you have 9, 10, 11 businesses in a small storefront, that becomes a challenge. But we have buildings like Empire Antiques or the Fairchild building where you have multi-tenants with storefronts, but a very large footprint, and having multiple signs per building, per storefront. In that case, you're not really dealing with the clutter issue. So that's something that we'd like maybe a little bit more tweaking on if the board decides to move forward with, or council decides to move forward with approving this. The other question brought up was if they do have a setback such as Black Oak, they have a little setback there that's technically private property, can they put their A-frames in that little setback and exceed the one per building requirement? And then I think the other is maybe there's an opportunity for Merchants on Main to work with the tenants and work with planning to look in building to look at creative solutions for those buildings that do have multiple tenants, such as Creekside. That's just picking on Creekside because I think that's one of the main eye offenders here. That maybe there's opportunities to work with those tenants and potentially the building owners to come up with other creative solutions. And then if the council does decide to not approve the A-frames at all, that maybe we do look at other solutions that was mentioned, whether it's flags or secondary signage that hangs down a little bit lower.
Could you please wrap up your comments?
Yeah,
Thank
The
you.
clock's not working.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
And that was it, just that we could potentially look at other solutions.
Yeah, thank you. I saw that was not working.
Hey, council. Good evening to you guys. I think this is a good compromise. We've been working on this for a long time. It seems like even when I first started Peak 100 years ago. Oh, first of all, I'm Tony from Bonkers Toy Store. Maybe since we have an annual fee associated with this, and there's still some questions, maybe we could just do this as a temporary to see for 1 year if this actually works for us. If we see if the crowding gets pulled back a little bit. So I do notice that sometimes it's really hard to walk up and down on Main. But I do think that the A-frames are really important to businesses themselves. And maybe this is, I think this is a good compromise, and maybe we give it a shot. Let's try it for a year, see if it works. And I don't know administratively if that even makes any sense with all the costs associated with doing it on the get-go. But I think it's a fair compromise, and I think maybe we could trial it maybe and see if it works, and if it doesn't, then we maybe just say no more to A-frames or come up with another compromise at that point. Thanks, guys.
Can you restart when we get? I don't know how to do that. Yeah.
Good evening, Kathy Lishman. I'm going to talk fast because I have a lot to say. Our current sign ordinance doesn't allow A-boards, but for whatever reason, the city has chosen to ignore its own ordinance, and things have gotten out of control. I have often heard people say, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. I have to say, I find A-boards hazardous. I don't read them, I dodge them. They are totally unnecessary, and they are on public property. Because our sidewalks are narrow, I often see people walking in the street just to get past the A-boards, street signs, garbage cans, tree wells, and other people walking. And you could be walking in opposite directions and someone goes in the street. Our historic downtown buildings have such lovely windows and window displays. Whether I am by myself or with friends, family, or out-of-town guests, when walking down the street, it is the buildings, the shops themselves, and the window displays that make a business inviting, not the A-boards. Let's honor these historic buildings and all of our downtown businesses by not cluttering up our sidewalks. I urge you to keep the ordinance as it is. Placerville would be more charming and pedestrian-friendly without the A-board signs. That said, I have some comments and questions about the ordinance that is before you. It talks about a sandwich board. I always think of a sandwich board as one you wear around someone just wears it, so I'm not sure what that means. Number two, allowing limited regulated A-frame sandwich board signs. What does limited mean? If it allows one per building, how many buildings are there in downtown so that we would know how many signs there could possibly be? 4, if it is a $50 permit and 2 different businesses will alternate putting their sign out, charging an additional $25 is fair for the city to have to approve and monitor both. And as Carol said, they're not charging the value of what it would be anyway. 5, they should be no wider than 24 inches wide. It says they could be 6 square feet. That would be 2 feet by 3 feet. And that way would make more room on the sidewalk too. Everybody would have their own personality to their own sign, but what's wrong with making them all the same size? Why would the signs need to be placed within 12 inches of the wall of the building? Why wouldn't they have to be right up next to the wall? Even with a 48-inch clearance, I still see people zigzagging down the street because your clearance, you might have the clearance to the curb here, and the next one has a garbage can or something.
Could you wrap up your comments?
I will.
Thank you.
I will. If they do have A-boards, that square footage on that sign should count against the total signs that someone can have. Please take more time with this and get more public input. No one has inventoried the people walking on Main Street to see what they think. The city has a newspaper that goes out in the water and the sewer bill. It would have been good to at least inform the public that way. Care was taken to inform the business community, but the public wasn't really informed. An ad in the paper is not enough.
Good evening. I'm James Marquez, and I'm the director of Art on Center. We're a gallery and art center, and we're the only business besides City Hall that faces Center Street. And I'm assuming that we are included in the downtown kind of footprint, although we're not actually on Main Street. We've been using A-frames for our business because you can't really see us from Main Street. We've been putting an A-frame out in front of our front door. It's away from the main walkway. We've never had anybody have to walk around it because it's off to the side. Never had any complaints with that. Our second one, we have put it down on the corner of Center Street and Main Street, and it's away from any doors, and we've never had any complaints about that. Also, on the corner where Lofty Lou's is, and we talked with them, and they had no problem with it. Their signs are down the street a ways, and if we don't have the ability to use A-frames, it's going to be much more difficult to steer people to our gallery. We're not. We don't sell anything except occasionally some of the art is for sale. So getting people into our gallery is how we, the foot traffic that comes through is how we get our grants and things like that keep us afloat. So I know I've walked down Main Street. I live right across the freeway from downtown. I know what it's like to have to make your way through downtown, and because I'm a business owner also, I make the effort and I don't complain. But I'm hoping that you might consider some businesses who don't have the luxury of being right on Main Street. So, thank you.
Are there any further comments on 10.1? All right, I see none, so I will bring it back up to the council for discussion. Nobody wants to talk, all right.
I'll talk. Yeah, this is one of the more challenging things. I think it's fascinating that the what a lot of folks in the foothills consider. I think our downtown is the best one, by the way. So what about to say doesn't really apply. But Nevada City, the gold standard, I think, except for us, of downtowns in the motherlode, doesn't do these things. And they have a very vibrant downtown, and it's very much fun. I travel all over. I'm fortunate to be able to travel with my wife. And we go to all sorts of cute little downtowns. Ours is amongst the cutest, I will say that, and I mean it. And you see a mix of things. Honestly, and this is just me, honestly, when there are too many of them, don't even look at them. Don't even look at them. When you walk, now granted, I don't look at the ones here because I already know what the stores have in them, so I don't need to. I think less would be more. I know for a fact that businesses have thrived on Main Street without A-frame signs, and businesses have gone out of business on Main Street with an A-frame sign in front of them. And I'm not going to argue with a business owner. I've never run a brick and mortar business in my life, and I know it's a lot of hard work, so I'm not going to argue with that. My gut tells me that it's not the sign. It's something else. It's called business. I think we should work to minimize the number of them. 2 per multi may be a good compromise in that regard. There's a no-win. I would like to see them all have a uniform dimension, though. I think that's something to be thought about. Thank you very much. Rather than go, well, it's 6 square feet, because then you'll end up with a bunch of different things. And then we'll be back here talking about it. And so if we say, if it's 6 feet, 2 by 3, 2 by 3, that's the number. Make that the number. Whatever the materials thing, that seemed fine. I like the idea of having specials on there. I would say that if I do look at a sandwich board when I'm traveling, it will be for like the special, but typically they have those on the building. So you go to a restaurant, they usually have that on somewhere in the front of the building. They'll say, these are our specials today. There is no winning this. We will make a decision. If we decide to do something along the lines of an ordinance, we will be accused of hating Main Street businesses. We don't. I don't think they do. But we do need to regulate the downtown Main Street, and we need to do something about it, and this is a first step to do that. I would be in favor of most of what's in here with maybe some alterations. The size of the district, that's fine. That's fine. I think I have Ms. Kendrick's cold, so a little low energy tonight, but that's my feeling about it. What we have in front of us is fine. I don't think they need any more public comment. I think the public knows. I think they can, if you ask most people about the A-frames on Main Street, they won't have an opinion about it. They go, I don't care. Or they do care, I don't know. We've talked about this, Ed, for a long time. And I think we should just make this happen one way or another. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, obviously, the main issue we're running up against is just the proliferation of these things. I mean, it's not having any regulations. We've seen the results, and that's obviously not good. And so I like the suggestion, the 6 square feet is already in the ordinance, but I like the suggestion of no more than 24 inches wide. So that way it does keep them uniform. I think that would, being uniform would help with also with the width of the sidewalk. And this is a question for the mayor, is that, ADA is referenced in here numerous times, with the 48-inch width minimum, and also they all must comply. Full compliance with ADA is in the ordinance also. So I hope that between those two things that would help your concern with the ADA compliance, because it is required in the ordinance. But overall, yeah, I like the idea of the central business district instead of having a defined set on only Main Street, especially with the side streets like you mentioned, having them included. With that specific example, they wouldn't obviously be able to have 2 signs or put it out on Main Street. It'd have to be in front of their building. And so, that would limit them somewhat, but that would at least help, bring some people into their business. So overall, I'm happy with the ordinance with a couple of those changes that we talked about, and I think that we can probably figure this thing out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to move forward with limiting it to 2 feet in the width direction, and then, expanding it so like the folks on Center Street, and I think I looked at it, there was like 5 businesses that would be excluded that are in the central business district if we just did Main Street only from those 2 streets. So I'd like to kind of expand it for that zone designation, just to be fair to everyone, give them all the equal opportunity. That's kind of where I am. I think those are the 2 changes that I would like to see.
What is the thought on the allowing 2 signs for buildings that have 4 or more businesses? There's only a couple that would fall under that. I mean, obviously Black Oak, Creekside, and maybe the big, I guess, Creekside place up where the Marshall Labs are, where we do our fire safe event every year. They would fall under that category also.
I mean, I'm open to that. I mean, I think they could put it on either side of the entrance into there, one on one side and one on the other without overly.
I don't think they're getting a lot of walk-in traffic up there, though.
They don't, but I mean, they would still fall under that. But
yeah, they fall into it, but
buildings that would fall under that category. I just like to give them the opportunity to be amicable neighbors and not have to fight over
sure.
a lot of times.
Sure.
So just a suggestion.
No, that's fine. I understand. Yeah, no, I'm okay with that for now.
Any further discussion? Somebody want to?
I have one question. I'm sorry, I do have a question. I was thinking about this sooner. And it's probably in there, and please forgive me. So if we were to approve something and say, yeah, make us an ordinance, it would come back. What I'm getting at is giving the merchants some time, for those that don't have a 2x3 sign made out of wood and chalkboard, because there's a lot of options out there. Giving folks some time, if we come up with this thing, to to get it together, get a new sign, give them some time. I'm assuming there'll be enough time, though, just in the bureaucratic mechanisms. How much time are we talking about? Anybody can answer this question.
Well, just really quickly, because there have been a number of changes that are
Yeah,
proposed.
we'd have to
I do
bring it back.
recommend that we bring it back for first
Okay.
reading with
Okay.
revisions.
All right. So that would be, okay, good. I'm fine. All right.
Would anybody want to make a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion that we direct staff to bring back an ordinance for first reading, incorporating the changes that we have suggested tonight.
Yeah.
I'll second.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
No.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right. We are going to go ahead and move on to item number 10.2. Consideration of zoning ordinance amendment 25-02, Title 10 zoning, Chapter 4, Section 10-4-20, short-term rentals, to include hosted short-term rentals, and finding that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Ms. Kendrick.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Carol Kendrick, Director of Development Services, here presenting item 10.2, which is the ZOA 25-02, amending Title 10, Chapter 4, Section 20 of the City Code to include hosted short-term rentals, or STRs. First, a bit of background. In July of 2022, the Council adopted Ordinance 1710, which regulated short-term rentals as lodging uses in commercial zones like the commercial business district, commercial, and highway commercial, while prohibiting them in residential areas to protect neighborhood character and long-term housing stock consistent with our Housing Element Program F7. Since then, market trends have highlighted the rise of hosted short-term rentals where the owner resides on site during guest stays, offering low impacts due to direct oversight. At the mayor's request in August of 2023, staff explored options to allow these in qualifying residential zones under the California Building Code R3 standards, limited to 1 or 2 family dwellings with up to 5 bedrooms and 10 occupants. This amendment also aligns with Senate Bill 346, the Short-Term Rental Facilitator Act of 2025, effective January 1st of this year. Senate Bill 346 empowers cities like ours to require online platforms such as Airbnb and VRBO to report quarterly on listed properties, including addresses, parcel numbers, and URLs, and to include local license and TOT certification in their ads. This enhances our enforcement, TOT collection, and compliance without preempting local rules. Key provisions in the proposed ordinance include defining hosted short-term rentals, requiring the host to be the deeded owner with the property as their primary residence, extending to R3 residential zones, and again, that's the California Building Code, not a zoning designation, for hosted rentals only, allowing them in ADUs if the owner is in the main dwelling, capping total citywide short-term rental permits at 30 per year, limiting occupancy to 2 per bedroom, up to 10 people, mandating 24/7 host availability, quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., annual inspections by the city and the fire marshal, 3-year record keeping, and prohibitions on events, outdoor sleeping, and unhosted residential short-term rentals. New construction of these would require site plan review. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 6th of this year where they discussed concerns like parking and complaint thresholds for revocation. They suggested edits which have been incorporated into the red line draft in Attachment C and recommended approval with a vote of 3 yeas, 1 abstention, and 1 absent, as detailed in Attachment B. Staff recommends conducting a public hearing tonight, finding the project exempt from CEQA under Section 15060C2 and 3, as it's an administrative update with no environmental impact, and introducing and waiving the first reading of the ordinance. This amendment balances tourism and economic vitality, potentially adding modest revenue from permits and TOT, while safeguarding our neighborhoods and housing. I'd be happy to answer any questions before we open the public hearing. That concludes my presentation.
Mayor, if I may?
Oh.
There was one correction to that staff report I wanted to raise is it was actually past city council member Michael Saragosa that requested that an ordinance, that a citywide ordinance that would allow residential STRs to be brought forward. And so I just wanted to clarify that it's not the current mayor, it was actually past Mayor Saragosa, or past city council members Saragosa. Thank you.
Yeah, I just was going to add, that this, it's an incorrect reference related to the history. It was not me in August of 2023. The original motion that was made and passed by the city council asking for this was from May 4th, 2021, or May 11th, 2021, before I was even on the city council. So just for the clarification, and then also, if we are to move forward with this, there's a resolution item where it says, whereas Councilmember Nicole Gottberg, and that should be corrected to whereas the city council, given that it was not coming from me.
Just you.
Yeah, so that's just one item of clarification as we move forward. But are there questions from the city council to staff? All right. Are there any other things before we open it up to public comment? If not, I will go ahead and open it up to the public at this time. If the public would like to come up and speak on this item, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Frank Porter here on behalf of Housing El Dorado. And I just wanted to make a few comments. First of all, we have taken, and we've been here before you on the prior ordinance, commenting on that one as well as earlier on this one. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into this current ordinance, and but I did want to comment that we are fundamentally opposed to vacation rentals, and I think we've expressed that before. And fundamentally, we all know that this decreases the affordable housing stock over time, that it removes housing that could be used for attainable workforce housing, shifts over, and is now not available for that purpose. Nevertheless, it looks like the boat's left the dock on this one, so I'm here to actually offer some, I hope in the spirit of constructive suggestions. And your staff has already talked about this, and I think you experienced this with your first ordinance, and that is that the enforcement component is really important. And other jurisdictions, when we did our research, and I'm sure staff has found this too, particularly when you get a more complicated ordinance like this one is, the enforcement part of it is really important. It's kind of the old saw about if you don't measure it, you don't know what's happening. And you really need that feedback loop. So I was glad to hear about the quarterly reports. I would suggest that you add into the quarterly reports administratively reports on the enforcement actions and where is that going and what are you finding. That would be another metric that I think would be a useful thing to add. The other one is that I want to make sure you do mention it in one of your reports about the need, you're going to generate revenue from increased TOT collections, and that's a good thing because I think you're missing some of that now, obviously, with the current ordinance. So, and with better enforcement and better accounting, I think you're going to recover that. And that's a positive thing for the city, and it's a good, consistent thing to have. And it's fair to all the other folks that are doing this to be fair and make sure it's being collected across the board. But I also hope you will devote revenue from that to consistently fund the staff time to do the enforcement part. Because it really takes some going out to sites. And over time, what I often see jurisdictions doing, I think, is that, budgets get tight, we're collecting this TOT revenue, and we kind of short shrift. It's like maintenance work. It's like deferred maintenance. You're going to cut back on it. Well, that's going to come back to haunt you. So I urge you to make sure that you commit enough funds to do that. And it's only fair to staff, too. If you add it on to their already big load and you're not funding it adequately, you're really kind of self-ordaining that you're not going to get solid data. The other last one I want to encourage you to talk, I was looking up the ordinance. In the ordinance that you proposed, the penalty part of it is linked to your penalty for your ordinances, which is section 145 in your city code. And I was reading it. I think you might want to go back and look at the penalties because I think this is a little out of date.
Could you go ahead and wrap up your comments?
What?
Could you work on wrapping up your comments, please?
Huh?
Could you wrap up your comments?
Yes, I'm right there.
Great.
Every violation determined to be an infraction is punishable by a fine not exceeding $100 for the first violation, a fine not exceeding $200 for the second one, and of the same ordinance within 1 year, and a fine not exceeding $500 for each additional violation. And I would suggest that's not enough of a bite to enforce for people to care about abiding by your ordinance. So I would suggest you might want to review that. Thank you very much for your time.
Great.
Okay. Excuse me, 3 minutes we're doing, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll set a timer. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, Larissa Lujan. For one, I wanted to thank you guys for bringing up the background. Some of the information on the staff report that was presented to you was indeed incorrect on the references. Specifically, the August 8th, 2023 statements. I actually went back and watched that on YouTube, and it's interesting that it was noted just one council member's comment in this background. When I watched the video, there was a lot of comments from the different council members, many of whom are still on this current board. In that particular meeting, it was noted that the staff had admitted to their error in the reading and interpretation of the law, and they recommended that if it was the desire of the city council to go back and make amendments, that they could. The downside with this is every action has a reaction, and I've come forward on this topic many times. It was even stated by that staff member that that error was done way back when. The problem is a lot of the recommendations that have been made to you, we've formed ordinances based on an incorrect interpretation of some of the laws at that time. The other issue I have with the background that was presented to you in the staff report is there's a lot of missing information. There was actually another Planning Commission meeting that was held on June 4th, 2024 on this very exact topic. That background is not provided to you in the staff report today. What's interesting to note about that is that meeting was stemmed from the comments that I provided to you that was submitted to the city this morning. I had originally submitted this to the Planning Commission. On January 9th, 2024, the City Council directed staff to bring to the Planning Commission and subsequently City Council proposed regulations for hosted short-term rentals within residential zones. This actually was not true. And Mr. Morris was at the meeting where this was identified to the Planning Commission that it was not supposed to be just a hosted rental ordinance. I went back and watched that meeting. It was actually mentioned by Councilmember No that it wasn't your desire to piece the ordinance apart, a recommendation for hosted rental or just for homes, that it was your goal to have a holistic ordinance presented to you guys. And that's why the 90-day time frame was requested by 4 of you that are still sitting here. The actual motion that was passed by Clarici, Gottberg, No, and Yarborough was that staff was to request a review of short-term rental ordinance by the Planning Commission within 90 days. Sorry, I'll wrap this up real quick. And then present the ordinance to the City Council for consideration. That didn't happen within 90 days, and it also was not a holistic approach, which was what was the motion that was passed by you guys. So I'm asking you that you correct that today. Your staff report says that the recommendation is to conduct a public hearing to receive public input, and I hope that you do. I hope that you suggest that you take option number 3 to continue the item for further review, because there's a lot of background missing in your report today. Thank you.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville. And I think we need to take a lesson from South Lake Tahoe. South Lake Tahoe has had their ordinary building, their ordinary residential areas, many of whom have just been ruined by being turned into short-term rentals. So the neighborhoods that used to be neighborhoods aren't neighborhoods anymore. They are just short-term rentals. And this is a problem if you want to live in a neighborhood and have neighbors, and your neighbors are short-term rentals who are here for 2 days or 3 days and then gone, and then you have new neighbors and you never have a neighborhood. I think we need to take a lesson and not have a lot of short-term rentals in Placerville. It brings you a lot of problems. Your motels and hotels have a hard time making a living if they have to compete with short-term rentals. People tend to like them, but they are very detrimental to neighborhoods and to people who live in a city. So I would like to see us put some serious limits on this. And in any case, I would like to see us not have short-term rentals in Placerville, period. That would be my recommendation, is that this is not an appropriate use of our housing stock. We need to have our housing stock for the people who live and work in Placerville, not people who come here for 3 days and to go skiing and then are gone. So thank you.
Hello, Kathy Lishman. I was interested in the part about 5 bedrooms and they could have 10 people, and it's a short-term rent. I mean, it's a hosted. That would have a great impact on a neighborhood. And if there were 5 bedrooms, one of them would have to be the person who owned the house. But it sounds like short-term rentals could have a lot of activity and a lot of noise. But I was surprised that one council member could, even though it wasn't you, Mayor Gottberg, could direct staff to do something. And South Lake Tahoe spent a lot of time on this. I have watched meetings online because I own a home up there. And it's very painful and it's very difficult. And it involves the community in giving a lot of input. And they had committees and meetings, and I even went to one up there once. And Supervisor Veerkamp's in the audience. I know the county has put a lot of thought in this. And I know that South Lake Tahoe had to hire one code enforcer. I know this is just hosted short-term rentals, but it was very confusing in the material because it was talking about short-term rentals, which to me, it must have meant the ones that are in the business districts. So that was a little confusing. Anyway, I want to make sure that it's an owner-occupied home, that they don't hire someone to go and be in that home when they are renting it out. So owner-occupied, and I'm sure a lot of rules will come if you approve this. I know we have quite a few illegal ones in the town already, and the city is not collecting any money from it. And in a short-term rental, I have a question, are they allowed to have a kitchen that's separate? You know, it could be part of the house, but it's separate from the main part. Anyway, hosted short-term rentals could be a problem. Please make sure that they aren't, and take the advice of the county and South Lake Tahoe in how to go about this. Thank you.
Hello, Alan Ming again. You guys definitely have some hot topic buttons tonight. Personally, I think a lot of business owners will be conflicted because we absolutely do not want to see a repeat of what's happened in some other cities, and there's definitely some lessons to be learned, and we've seen many of these cities backtrack on moving forward this. But I do think that you guys are on the right track, a hosted type approach where it's more of a B&B type of a short-term rentals versus having investors coming in and starting to buy up a lot of the properties. I do think the other positive side of it is, you know, it's going to help some people address the affordability of homes right now. So it gives them the opportunity to purchase a home and help supplement the income to pay their mortgage and taxes and such. By allowing them to do some short-term rentals of their extra bedrooms, or if they have an ADU or whatever it might be. Also, from the business perspective, there is somewhat of a lack of hospitality in the Placerville area, and we really are kind of a pass-through, not really a destination because of the lack of that hospitality. And I think this helps address that, and it not only benefits, you know, Placerville or selfishly Main Street, but really helps benefit the entire region, whether it's people going to Goldbug Park or going to Apple Hill, and really kind of helps, you know, all of the El Dorado community, not just Placerville. So, thank you.
Are there any further comments on this item? All right, if not, I'm going to bring it back to the council for discussion. Anybody want to start? If not, I will. But if not, I will. So I have, I guess I have a number of concerns related to short-term rentals in residential zones. I'm going to start with, you know, we have an existing short-term rental for our commercial districts, and we have some short-term rentals there, and we have had some violations and issues with compliance there. So I am worried about expanding that program and enforcement of it, and how are we going to maintain compliance if we go out into the entire, you know, we allowed 30 when we currently have 4, and, you know, how to just staff load and maintaining compliance with that. And I think we will probably receive more complaints when we are in residential neighborhoods, and I know we're a lot of complaint-driven code enforcement. So that's kind of one concern that I have. I think another is with ADUs. So for me, you know, you're taking away potential long-term housing stock by allowing ADUs to be used for short-term rentals. And so, you know, you're increasing the economic value for the person who currently owns the property, but you're making it detrimental for folks who are renters in our community and the ability for them to be able to afford housing and find housing. So increasing values of properties for owners, and then making it more difficult for people who are trying to buy a home for the first time and don't own one already, or so kind of that dynamic. And then we've also talked a ton about ADUs and our concerns about like substandard streets and parking and the safety hazards associated with that. And while we can't stop them from being built in those conditions because of state rules, like we don't have to allow them in those conditions to be used for short-term rentals. So I'm just gonna kind of like, those are my thoughts. I certainly want them to be hosted if we have them. I think that's a necessity. I think the current language in here is like not explicit enough in my mind. Like it talks about hosted and unhosted, and like it's not like really explicit that if you're residential, you know, like it's only hosted and nothing else. And I would definitely want to see some language added that like makes that clear. And like I said, I'd also want to kind of see like the substandard street thing, since we've had that like ongoing discussion, and not let these short-term rentals be on substandard streets. And then I'm just kind of worried about like the number and the compliance. And the other one is more an ideological thing, so I don't think that's like a, you know, resolvable by changing an ordinance, right? So that's where I am. So folks, go ahead and discuss if you want.
The thing I like about the hosted is, you know, there is accountability, direct accountability to a property owner. I think that everywhere these are tried, they are way more compliant than a non-hosted STR. And I agree with you that the language is a little vague, that, you know, the unhosted STRs are still only allowed in the commercial districts. They're not going to be allowed in residential districts. The ADU thing, it's a fraught conversation. I personally don't mind people having the ability to do a short-term rental in their ADU, but I do understand the concerns with housing stock, and but I typically fall on the side of allowing property owners to have free use of their property when it's appropriate, and so I don't mind that section of it. But I do love the accountability of hosted rentals. I think this is a good idea. I think this gives people the opportunity to pay their bills. It gives them another income stream for people that are really suffering, and so I like it. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So I've lived in areas with short-term rentals. I've actually lived in South Lake Tahoe, and I've lived directly in a neighborhood that was 90% short-term rentals, and less than that when it comes to, there was probably 6 houses in 2 blocks that were full-time occupants. Everything else was short-term rentals. So I have seen the fine line and the razor's edge that comes from having short-term rentals in a neighborhood, but at the same time, I've also seen the benefits of it. With what we're proposing here with short-term rentals and residential, it is definitely, and it's in the language that it must be not only the deeded primary resident, but they must be on site during the short-term rental. So that I am definitely comfortable with. Every short-term rental I've seen where it's the landlord that is there making sure the property is taken care of, the property is usually in better shape than most standard primary residences or even long-term rentals. And it definitely helps out the community when it comes to our TOT tax. It comes to them shopping in our downtown areas. So I'm a little more for this. Also with the fact that we got to give our property owners the opportunity to, if they have a property they want to rent, to have that option. If that's something that they so desire based on they're the property owner and we're not. So at this point, yes, there's probably some language clarification that maybe needs a little bit of cleanup, but other than that, I think the basis of what we have here should give us a pretty good opportunity to increase some things here in the city.
Thank you. My wife and I use Airbnb and Vrbo a lot. With almost no exceptions, they've all been hosted in one form or another, either a building where there's like an apartment and they're living above you or whatever. Or in one case, a couple of cases where it was a larger parcel and they had the house and then they had like a garage and an apartment over the garage. But there was always you could see the owners, they were hanging around. Nobody buys a house in a residential neighborhood wanting a hotel next door. And and I agree, as much as we are trying to figure out a way to make this right for property owners, we have to think of the 90-something other percent of the people around them that won't have this. They won't have an apartment. They're not running a hotel out of their home. I think small steps are good. If I thought, I would, generally speaking, even though I'm an advocate of Airbnb, if we could figure out a way to not have them in town, that would be fine with me. But as long as everybody's got one of these and access to, the interwebs, you're not going to stop this. It's not a good excuse for having something that you can't enforce a law, but in this case, I think managing the situation is better than like ignoring it or trying to outlaw it. I don't think that's even practical. I would like to start with hosted and not the ADUs. I think small steps, we just see how that goes, have our capable staff report back to us. I agree that the fine should be different. That's not even a deterrent, probably. Some of the process discussions, and I take them seriously, but my recollection about the way we went about this in its most recent iteration, and I was around for the 2023 meetings and everything after that, I think we gave pretty clear direction to staff on this last iteration. I can't speak to what didn't happen in 90 days, but I can tell you for sure, all sorts of things get launched off of this dais that don't happen in the timeframes that we thought we were going to do them in. Eventually we get to them. I'm fairly satisfied with the process that has been put forth so far. Anyway, so my personal feeling, I will support an ordinance that allows for this, hosted, and if we need to clean up the language on hosting and non-hosting, that's fine. We should not include ADUs right now, and then see how it goes. And then, hold the people that are actually doing this accountable for their actions. And then if we decide we get down to some point, we may go, no, we don't want to do this ever again. One difference, I love Placerville, and it's a lovely town, and I know people want to come here. It is not South Lake Tahoe. It's not going to, it's never, we were talking about this. I was talking to the city manager about this, and Dave. He actually has a name, Dave Warren. But I was talking to Dave about this, and I have a friend who lives in a place called Lincoln City. It's up on the Oregon coast, a nice little place, beautiful views of the Pacific Ocean, and it is a tourist town. It is that. They have nothing else going on up there, nothing but tourism. And they lost control of their short-term rentals, but they also had a lot of investor rentals. So those people don't live anywhere near the houses that they're renting out. And it's a zoo. It's awful. And so I think small steps, we keep an eye on it, excuse me, and I like what we've got here. I think it'll address the needs and the concerns of folks, and I would be in favor of supporting that, assuming that's what was in there.
Okay, a few different things. I wanted to address that, yes, we did talk about a holistic approach and addressing all of those. I think staff has brought us something that they thought we probably could move forward. I think not hosted is a much bigger conversation, does need a lot more public input. So I think, we've had a changeover in staff, and I think staff has brought us something that, she thought we could perhaps move forward with. So that's why tonight I think we're only talking about hosted, and I'm okay with the hosted. And, everyone's giving examples. I wanted to give an example. I know she doesn't live there anymore, but she was an elderly lady, and she was living in El Dorado Hills, and she had an Airbnb. And she didn't need an Airbnb. And I said, why do you have an Airbnb? And she said, I love having the company. Right. She said, I do this on the weekends. She said, you'd be surprised at the people I have. She said, I have one guy who has, the parents are separated, and this is him coming to see his kids, and he just comes and stays with me, and I have these repeat customers. She said another gal was a grandmother who came to see her kids and grandkids. She said there's 5 grandkids. She's like, I want to relax at night. I don't want to be in that house with those 5 grandkids. And so, there's all sorts of reasons. I mean, I start looking at, the price of everything going up. It gives people an opportunity to, make a little income to offset the rising costs, which things are getting hard. I had a lot of conversations today. So one of the things that I learned that I didn't know, and perhaps Supervisor Veerkamp might have more information on this, is that
He's like going, keep me out of this.
well, I didn't know because we were talking about enforcement, and I'm talking to people and I'm saying, how do we deal with this? And I guess the county has an arrangement with Airbnb directly where they pull the taxes right from the site, so they don't have to depend on people coming to pay them. And so I shared that with whatever that agreement looks like. So it looks like there are mechanisms to help with that enforcement. Particularly on page 4, number 2, this is where it got the confusing for me, where it starts off talking about the non-hosted STRs, yet in our staff report we said we're only talking about hosted STRs. So I wonder if we could just strike number 2, page 4, and that would take out a lot of the confusion. Because like I said, it didn't exactly, I read it and I'm like, but the staff report said this, and so if you just don't talk about the non-hosted, I think that resolves a lot of the issues.
Well,
We have non-hosted in the commercial business district. My understanding was for the residential district.
Or does it kind of?
Yeah, I think as written, it's intended to cover everything,
Yes.
but I think that's where some of the confusion lies. And so, like, one of my comments was, however we do it, whether we split it into 2 or we make 2 different sections in this, we just need to be like really clear, because as it reads right now, it gets confusing. I was confused, so I'm sure.
Right, because someone who's putting in an application, this is all they're reading. They're not reading the staff report from what we did today. So yeah, that clarification I think needs to be more clear to the public. The other thing, so on page 2, top of the page, we're saying 30 per year hosted and unhosted. I don't, it doesn't seem fair for our hosted that we're only gonna, we have like 4 right now, so we're saying 26 people could do, only 26 people can do this. And maybe it's not gonna be a problem, and maybe we need to move forward and just see how that goes, but it just didn't seem very fair to me. As far as the ADUs, I'm actually okay with the ADUs. That's not an issue for me. I'm living on the property. Whoever I'm letting in there is basically living on my property with me, so I didn't have an issue with that one. I think that's pretty much all I have on that one.
One thing I forgot to mention is I think no matter which direction we decide to go, I think it'd be great for us to do a 12-month follow-up. To get, to get information from our staff about how the first 12 months went, how many applied, how many violations. So no matter which, if we decide to go forward with this, I think it'd be great to ask for a 12-month follow-up just to find out how this program is working, just as a suggestion. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I do have an issue with the ADUs, and if it didn't come out, I wouldn't support it, so that's kind of where I'm at. But if, I'm one vote, so the rest of you are free to do what you want. I think we've kind of heard from everybody at this point. If there's more discussion, or if not, I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to.
One question, actually, because, I think all the short-term rental stuff should be housed in an ordinance. Mm-hmm. Maybe we just need to guide a little bit more detail on, you either fall into this and this.
Yeah.
The other thing too, though, and this is something that came to mind while we were talking, is the business district and the residential districts they're pretty well defined, correct? Okay, good. Well, because you could see people going, well, I'm actually in the business district, trying to play fast and loose. Okay. because sometimes our maps aren't always up to date, I found out here not too long ago. So as long as that's the case, then I like it all being in one location, and maybe just put some language in there that this is literally like big letters.
Okay.
Business district, residential district, these are the rules, hosted, not, then.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, otherwise that was it for me.
Before I attempt a motion, are we tiptoeing on the same situation we had the last one where too much material change, or are we okay?
I would also recommend that this come back for first reading to clarify the
Okay.
changes. There's
That's
also
what I was
been,
worried about, darn it.
Right, and apologies, there was a number of requested changes from the council, so
Yes.
I would suggest that the motion actually clarify which ones are going to be subject to the change. The one that's been predominant is a clear indication that hosted STRs apply to residential and non-hosted to commercial. But there were, the ADU issue, there were some requests for clarification of other things. One other thing, it came up in public comment, and Councilmember Clarici raised it. We can't change the amount of the fine that's set by the government code because it's an infraction. If you wish to make the violations a misdemeanor, we can do that. But that's kind of the limit.
Seems a bit harsh, but okay.
Sure.
Damn.
Okay, well, I can take a stab at it then. So I make a motion that we direct staff to bring back an ordinance incorporating a couple of changes, specifically on page 4, section 2, improving the verbiage to very clearly state that non-hosted STRs are only allowed in commercial districts, and kind of cleaning up that language so it's clear that there are no non-hosted STRs allowed in residential areas. I am in favor of leaving the ADUs as a possibility, so that would be part of my motion. I think really the only material change would be that section 2, clarifying that language regarding non-hosted and hosted STRs and where they're located. That would be my motion.
I would, oh, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, you can second first.
I was second, yeah.
Yeah, I had one requested amendment on the resolution. Can we please change the third whereas to change Councilmember Nicole Gottberg to the city council?
Yeah, I would amend my motion to, when that comes back to us, that the resolution properly state where this originally came from.
And is this also include direction to staff to come back in 1 year after adoption?
And thank you very much. And also include a provision for a 12-month follow-up to the city council for an update on how the program is working.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
No. All right, we are going to go ahead and move on now to, well, would anybody like a break first, or?
We always enjoy the visit from our Ford County Supervisor. Are you here for item 12.1? Okay.
Okay.
Why don't we just do
You can do 12.1. All right. We will go ahead and move on to item number 12.1. Consider supporting the application of Jamboree Housing Corporation for the Local Government Matching Funds Program, acknowledging infeasibility of affordable housing development at 212 Armory Drive and authorizing related actions under the Excess Sites Program and related findings. Ms. Kendrick.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Carol Kendrick, Director of Development Services, presenting item 12.1 for consideration of a resolution supporting Jamboree Housing Corporation's application for the Local Government Matching Grants Program, acknowledging the infeasibility of the affordable housing development at 212 Armory Drive and authorizing related actions under the state's excess site program. As outlined in the staff report, this stems from Governor Newsom's 2019 Executive Order N-06-19, which aimed to repurpose state-owned excess sites for affordable housing. In September of 2021, the state selected Jamboree Housing, an experienced nonprofit developer, to build an 83-unit workforce and family affordable housing project called the Clementine on 2.58 acres. At 200 sorry, I'm fading. 212 Armory Drive. Over the past 4 years, Jamboree worked closely with city staff on pre-development, including design refinements, parking solutions, council presentations, and environmental reviews. However, the Jamboree and the state have mutually agreed that the project is not feasible due to site-specific constraints. To close this out, Jamboree is applying for reimbursement of eligible pre-development costs through the state's LG-MG program established under Assembly Bill 140 in 2021. This program reimburses costs for selected projects with local government, but importantly, it requires no financial commitment from the city in this case, as the project didn't proceed. The proposed resolution does four key things. First, it supports Jamboree's LG-MG application and acknowledges the state's prior selection. Second, it approves the budget and sources as detailed in attachments 1 and 2, which included committed funds like a $4 million infill infrastructure grant and others totaling over $31 million, plus $10 million allocated for the LG-MG award. Third, it notes that if the project had been feasible, we would have provided $100,000 in fee waivers as our local contribution. Fourth, it authorizes an $811,424 disbursement from LGM funds for Jamboree's pre-development expenses, again, at no cost to the city. This action aligns with our strategic plan for fiscal sustainability and concludes the process orderly and supports our broader housing goals without obligating local funds. This is exempt from CEQA as an administrative action with no physical impacts. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. We also do have members from Jamboree here tonight.
Are there any questions from the council?
I don't have a question. I have a recommended amendment from our attorney. On page 2, under the resolution, that we add the finding number 4, due to the infeasibility of the project due to site constraints, the city of Placerville is now supportive of Jamboree Housing submitting an application to the Department for reimbursement of Jamboree Housing pre-development costs.
Are there any further comments or questions from the council before I open up to public comment? Nope. Okay. I will now open it up for public comment for this item.
Sue Rodman, I was here when this thing was first proposed, and every meeting it came up in, people were against it. And it looked to me, after I saw the site plans, I thought, this thing is stupid. This is not a feasible project to go forward. And sure enough, now, finally, several years later, and several $100,000 later, they have come to the same conclusion. It's infeasible. I would absolutely agree. It's been infeasible since the time it was first proposed. So it's nice to see that they finally came around and figured it out.
Any other public comments? All right. I see none, so we will go ahead and bring it back to the council for any further discussion or motion if there is none.
I move staff recommendation.
With
With
the recommended
recommended addition of section 4, due to infeasibility of the project, due to site constraints, the city of Placerville is now supportive of Jamboree Housing submitting an application to the Department of Reimbursement of Jamboree Housing's development costs, pre-development costs.
Yes, I will second that with the addition.
All right, we have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gopper?
Aye. All right. Now would folks like a 5-minute break? We will reconvene at 6:45 in 5 minutes. It's like-
Stealing from the police. Come on, what are you doing?
What did they think we were going to do with that? Yeah, I know.
Well, they were basically for Jamboree.
Yeah, but like what?
But there was a couple of people for like the STR stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but why was Todd here?
Yeah, why was
He
Todd
wanted to know
here?
about the Jamboree thing. I asked him, I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah, why? Because we're gonna, like, what else would we have done with that? What else would we have done?
Why are you here? I love you, Todd, but why are you here?
I know, I was like, why would we do anything else than, like, approve their ability to stop their project?
I was worried that he had something for Maria that he wanted to do a public comment, and he
Yep.
missed it. That's why I was like, let's go.
All right, we are going to go ahead and reconvene the meeting now. If I can get my agenda back in front of me.
Nobody cares.
All right, so we are now moving on to item 12.2.
I move staff recommendation. The second one, option two. I
no.
move staff recommendation, option two.
We can't do that.
We can't? Wow.
No. Consider authorizing staff to distribute a Proposition 218 notice to city ratepayers as soon as practicable, including the proposed water rates, drought water rates, and wastewater rates, option 2, and directing staff to hold a Proposition 218 public hearing regarding the said water rates, drought water rates, and wastewater rates on April 14th, 2026 at 5 p.m. at Town Hall. Who is this supposed to be? Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mayor Gottberg, members of the council. So first of all, thank you for your input and the public's input at our workshop on January 22nd. That was very helpful. And so we're coming back to you with kind of a refreshed presentation. There are some repeat items here just for clarification. So tonight we'll talk about our mission statement and primary goal of the rate study. We'll talk about the sewer and water services we provide, the operating costs versus project costs that we have, the unfunded program needs, costs of providing services, and the proposed rates and options and next steps. And of course, any questions you may have or comments. So our mission statement in preparing this study was for the city providing services to provide clean, safe, and reliable water and wastewater collection and treatment services at reasonable costs to Placerville customers 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So our operations continue every day. The primary goal of the study was to establish rates that cover the cost of operating and proactively maintaining the sewer and water system for the next 5 years. So we're limited by Proposition 218 to a 5-year period of our rate structure. And then the services, so we provide water acquisition and delivery. As you heard earlier tonight, we purchase water from EID, and then we pipe it to the customer through our distribution system, meters, pumps, so on and so forth. We also collect sewer through our sewer lines, and then we treat it at our water reclamation facility. Almost 1 million gallons of sewer per day on a dry day. When it's wet, when it's raining, it's actually quite a bit more, depending on how much precipitation we have. We have to engineer, we have to improve our facilities, and that takes engineering. So our engineering department is busy doing those things. We also provide the accounting, the utility billing to the customer to provide statements and receive their payment. And then just general administration, the council, city attorney, myself, and other staff. So the last study we completed was in February of 2018. The annual increase each year for 5 years was implemented. The last increase was in June of 2022. Since that time, our consumer price index increased by 8.31%. One of the things I want to point out is during the pandemic, we all recall the high prices we paid. We still pay for eggs and other things. So we assumed in the last study 3 to 4%, and in some sectors we were paying up to 7, 8, or higher percent for certain items, and that never came down. So we're still making up for lost time. Again, the last increase was in 2022. Since then, we've had unfunded mandates by the state in the way we run our water and wastewater facilities. The good news is our water reclamation facility solar project is near completion, and that'll save us approximately $150,000 a year in our sewer operations. So we mentioned the workshop on January 22nd, which was held. And then kind of moving on to our budget and, what makes up our costs. So we have, of course, our water fund, which is a completely separate fund. It's made up of personnel costs, services, supplies, debt payments, equipment, insurance, and other expenses. So is our sewer rates. One of the things I want to point out, of your sewer rates, about 41 cents on the dollar is just debt service. In other words, without even treating sewer, about 41% is just paying the debt on the plant, the improvements we did back in 2009. So those were operating costs. Now, if you look at our project costs, how we fund those primarily is through Measure H. It's a 0.25% sales tax that was approved back in 2010. And it can actually be used for water lines, sewer lines, the water reclamation facility projects, and debt service. However, the City Council in 2018 approved a change to where those monies are only used for sewer enterprise fund projects. The reason for that is to provide our 120% debt coverage ratio for our loans that we're required to have. And then Measure L, which was passed in 2016, provides, and we're very grateful for these measures, by the way, I don't know what we would do without them, pays for streets, water lines, sewer lines, and our water reclamation facility. So we use those funds for just projects, primarily in debt service. And then looking at our funding, so Measure H, again, 0.25% sales tax generates just under $1.4 million for projects and debt service. And then Measure L generates about double, almost 2.8 million. And then when we look at our rates, our sewer rates, for example, 1 percentage point increase generates about $71,000. So when we look at the proposals, kind of think about that number of what it takes to cover certain costs. Water, it's about almost $25,000 per 1%. And then moving on to the unfunded programs, we did in this study include some additional positions and changes in personnel. And the first one is the reclassification of the Public Works Superintendent to the Deputy Public Works Director. So this is primarily to provide more support to the Public Works Department due to regulations. For example, our USA checks that we have to do, as well as reporting. It used to be that for a sewer spill, it was just, I think, 2 or 3 pages, and now, Nick, what is it, like 20 pages or something like that? It's significantly greater, so it takes more horsepower to do that, and more sophistication. We also have 3 additional utility service specialists. These are folks that'll be in the field working on your water lines and sewer lines. For example, water, we're really more reactive. We're not as proactive as we'd like to be in flushing our water lines, so this would provide the staff for that. Also, the maintenance of valves. So the valves need to be exercised at least once a year or more, and that extends the life of the valve. And those valves are $10,000 to $15,000 a piece, and we have several of those. And then it also provides an incentive program to our maintenance worker ones. So there are certificates for water and sewer certificates, so they can work on the system, which makes them more valuable and more effective in our system. So what this does is it creates an opportunity for your maintenance worker ones to promote to a maintenance worker two, and as soon as they get that certificate, as long as there's a vacant position in that area. So, and then looking at the staffing, we show you both sewer and water. Over to the right, you can see that currently we have 11.75 FTEs in sewer, and currently, and then we're proposing actually total 14, I think it's 14.8. Okay, and then at the water reclamation facility, which is our sewer treatment plant, we're also recommending some changes. Some of these have already begun. For example, our lab director position, that previous employee retired, and we're actually going out to a private lab for those services. However, we still need a laboratory technician to do the testing, sampling, and do certain reporting. And so that position was actually recruited, and we're close to filling that position. However, the funding for that, we still need to, we have some savings this year that we can cover that with, but ongoing, we need to include that in our rates. And then the maintenance mechanic, we have a very excellent senior maintenance mechanic that's going to retire in the next year or two, and we really need to mentor a new person to handle it. This person knows how to weld, he knows how to work on electric motors, do wiring, plumbing, all that stuff. So people like that are hard to find anymore. So we need to get this new person up to speed to do that work so that when the senior retires, we'll be prepared for that. And then for transition planning, we have a chief plan operator who's excellent. However, he's eventually going to retire. And we need to, first of all, have a operator 4 position, somebody filling that position and prepared to take on that position potentially. So there's a proposed 7.5% increase in salary for that position, as well as our 3 operator 3 positions, which we have a grade 3 plant. They can actually run the plant, but we need to make them seniors so that they're more like lead workers. So there's a proposed 7.5% increase in salary for those 3 positions. And of course, it would be, they would have to show that they have the right certifications and right experience to move into those positions. And then similar to the Public Works Department, creating a situation where you have an operator 2 that gets their operator 3 certificate, being the city having the budget to encourage them to move to that next level so that they're backfilling the current operator 3. So that's our plan that's included in the study. And you can see the staffing, it really nets out to just 1 additional position at the wastewater reclamation facility. And now I'm going to hand it over to Natalie Tornicasa, our interim finance director, to talk about the rates.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, first we're going to talk about the water rates, and then we'll go into sewer. So for the Water Enterprise Fund, this is just showing you what the operating costs are for the fund. So 43 cents on a dollar, so 43% is personnel. The next one is 33, so 1/3 is supplies. What are supplies? Well, that's where the water acquisition from EID, but then supplies just like concrete, piping, office supplies, computers, things like that. And then it's overhead, services, and equipment. So that kind of makes up the Water Enterprise Fund. So our water dilemma is that if we do nothing today, our revenue is going to remain flat. But as everybody knows, expenditures continue to go up. So that means our deficit is going to increase. And looking at this slide, you can see the revenue is in blue, so it's flat. And the expenditures are in green, and you can see that they're just, they're pretty steadily, increasing. And then that's where our deficit increases. So forecasted for this fiscal year of 25-26, it's 171,209, all the way to forecast for 29-30 at $1.8 million. So as Dave mentioned, we had a workshop on Thursday, January 22nd, where we proposed water rates, and those were the option 1. So just to do a refresher of what was proposed on January 22nd, we are looking at rate increases of starting in April of 2026 at 15%, then April 2027, 15%, and then you can see 14%, 12%, and 12%. And then when you look at a single-family residential, the current base charge rate is $25.73. And then we also offer a single-family residential lifeline, and that base charge is $19.30. So you can see with option 1, the single-family residential base charge will grow from $25.73 to $48.66 in April of 2030. So I think the big question is, what will it cost me? And what's important here is just for us to point out that these are bi-monthly bills. So they're not monthly, they're bi-monthly. And with the current rates, single-family residential is paying $87.77, so a little over $40 per month. And if you're on the Lifeline program, it's $65.86. And then you can see where our first rate increase will take place in April of 2026, would increase to $100.94, and then all the way up to $165.99 by April 2030. So another way to look at this is, so what is that incremental cost increase? So as I mentioned, the first increase will happen in April 2026, and that'll be a $13.17 increase to your water bill. Divided over 2 months, you're looking at about a $6.50 monthly increase. And then that'll grow to April 2030. But again, it's really looking at, for every year, you're looking at anywhere from a $13 to a $17 increase per bill, per year. And then the proposed drought water rates, so these would be the rates if City Council declared a drought. So one of the things that we discussed during the January workshop was rate reduction options, and one of those was to reform our water leak adjustment past practice. And so one of the recommendations was to limit adjustments to one every 2 years, and to limit those adjustments to one billing period only. And right now, if you have a leak and you write in a letter, you get the leak fixed, the city covers 50% of the cost. So we would still, but now it just wouldn't be an unlimited number of leak adjustments. We would limit it to one every 2 years. And the projected annual savings is $30,281. And that would also save staff time, because these leak adjustments can take staff up to 30 minutes to make those adjustments. Another rate reduction option we discussed for water was implementing a 2.5% credit debit card convenience fee. But no fee for cash, check, or ACH e-check. So currently, you can go to Click2Gov, you can pay your utility bill online via credit card. The recommendation is to implement a 2.5% credit debit card convenience fee, but you'll also have the option to submit an ACH or e-check. And the projected savings would be $26,885 to your water rate. So if we took in those rate reductions, limiting the leak adjustments to one every 2 years, and having a convenience fee of 2.5%, the good news is it does lower the rate increase, incrementally. The first 2 years, April 2026 and April 2027, instead of a 15% increase, it's a 14% increase. So what will it cost me? So this is option 2. It includes those 2 rate reduction options that came out of the workshop. And so with the current rates, $87.77. If you're on the single-family residential Lifeline program, $65.86. And then by April 2030, $163.12, and Lifeline $122. Okay, what is that amount incrementally? So again, we bill bi-monthly. And so in April of 2026, if we go with option 2, it'll be each ratepayer on average will be paying $12.29 per bill more than they were paying. So about $6 more per month. And then again, that would range from a $12 monthly increase in 2026 to a $14 per bill increase in April 2027, and by April 2030, it's a $17.48 bill increase. And so in blue is the single-family residential, and then if you're on the Lifeline program, that bar is in red. And that Lifeline program offers a 25% discount in rates. Okay, I think it's really important to say, show how we compare to other local agencies. And I know the font is really small, but you can see with the blue arrows, that's where I'm going to be focusing on. So currently, the city of Placerville, when we're just talking water, we are the second lowest. And what's really interesting about our water is the fixed charge is not even half. So it's really driven by usage, your variable charge. But again, we were on the extreme low end on the water rates. Now if we look at option 1 and option 2, now we fall more in the middle, but focusing on option 2, that would put us at $100.06. That's for the bi-monthly bill, and that still puts us primarily on the low end. And again, that one is kind of in the ratepayers' control because the majority of that is based off of usage. Okay, now I would like to turn specifically to sewer rates. So similarly to the Water Enterprise Fund, the Sewer Enterprise Fund personnel makes up 40% of the cost. And then we have services, supplies, and overhead. And as Dave mentioned, debt payment is a big cost for the Sewer Enterprise Fund. It's the same dilemma for sewer as it is for water. If we do absolutely nothing, revenue is the blue line. And as everybody knows, expenditures continue to increase, and that's the green line. And if we do nothing, then we're increasing a deficit, currently forecasted for this fiscal year at $200,000, and that would increase all the way to $3.2 million in 2030. So our option 1 was what was proposed in the workshop. That had a sewer rate increase of 14%, April 2026, then a 9%, 7%, 7%, 7%. Currently, the single-family residential base charge is $205.81, so about $102 per month. And then that would increase to $313.29 by April 2030. And then we also show the single-family residential lifeline numbers. So what will it cost me? Current rates, it's costing for residents $210.58, Lifeline $157.94. And as these rate increases take place, then it would increase all the way to $320.55 and $240.41. But let's look at what the increase in cost is bi-monthly. So bi-monthly in year 1, which would be effective this April, ratepayers will be paying $29.48, so about $15 per month more for their sewer rates, sewer charges. And as you can see with the blue lines, residential, it's high at the beginning, and then it kind of levels off, and that's where it was like the 7%, 7%, 7%, and then it's about $20 more per month, per bill per year. So in that workshop, not only did we talk about water, we talked about sewer, and we looked at different ways that we could minimize the rate increase. And some of the rate reduction options was to eliminate the vacant home sewer discount. And that it has a projected annual savings of $37,000, as well as everybody pays their utility bill, which includes water and sewer. So that would also include that 2.5% credit debit card convenience fee. And that has an annual projected savings of $64,000. So if we move forward with option 2 and those rate reduction options, then that would, similarly to the water rate, it'll decrease it by 1% those first 2 years. So in April of 2026, it'll go from 14% to 13%, April 2027 from 9% to 8%. And then, so what will it cost me? Again, your current rate for sewer on your bi-monthly bill is $210.58. And if we go to, well, what's the incremental change? It'll be $27.37. And then we wanted to also look at, before we do that, let's do a quick comparison of how the city of Placerville compares to local agencies. So I know this is hard to read, but if you can see those blue arrows, that's where I'll be focusing. So currently, The city of Placerville is a little on the high end, but kind of in the middle at that 210.58. And option 1 and option 2 would have us at 237.95, 240. So on the high end, but these are fixed costs. This is, we have a sewer plant in the city, so that's not a lot of variable costs there. So what will water and sewer service cost me? Because we know that when it comes time for these rates to be increased and be reflected on your July bill, you know, what will that look like? And so under the current rates, single-family residential is $298.35. With the increase, $338.01. And incrementally, that's going to be a $39.66 increase in 2026, so $20 per month increase, and that'll be on water and sewer. So what would happen if the rates are not increased? I mean, as we said, and as we all know, expenses continue to increase. If we do nothing, you know, then we're going to create a deficit. It's going to cause the city to default on the 2006 SRF loan payments. We will have to cut services. We'll have an increased exposure to state fines, and we'll experience a growing number of water line breaks, sewer backups, and damage to private property. So with that, I'll hand it back to Dave to discuss next steps.
Thanks, Natalie. So tonight, we're going to ask you to determine what flavor of rates you'd like to go with. And then if the city council authorizes us to issue a Proposition 218 notice, that notice would be distributed so that the ratepayers receive them at least by February 28th of this month. And then this resolution, if you approve it, would also set the public hearing for April 14th. We would provide the complete report at that point from Bartle Wells. And we'll also provide additional information like FAQs and just additional information of why we're having to raise rates in between time. So the implementation would be between April and June, so that kind of like the billing period, and the first utility bill would be in July of 2026. And the goal is, and Natalie and I looked at this, if you also approve the 2.5% transaction fee, we will have, the plan is to have e-checks or ACH option, which is no fee on those, through our online bill pay. So that will be available in July. So.
All right. Are there any questions from the council? Great. I will go ahead and open this up for public comment.
Rodman, resident of Placerville, ratepayer in Placerville, and member of the Measure H, and Measure L committee. We can be really, really grateful that we have Measure H and Measure L. We have done an awful lot of projects in this city and repaired a lot of sewer lines, water lines, put in new water lines, put in new sewer lines, maintained pumps, all kinds of things with Measure H and Measure L money that otherwise either wouldn't have been done or wouldn't have been done by the ratepayers. With EID raising their water rates to us, we really don't have a choice but to mirror that for our people. You can't charge less than you have to pay. And it seems to me like I've looked over this and very carefully, and I think with doing the things that we can do to reduce the rates as much as we can, even if it's only 1%. 1% is better than 0. And I think that they've done a pretty good job putting together rates that will kill us, but kill us slower. So I don't see any real options. I mean, we've already done Measure H&L. I'm not sure how much more we could do in terms of getting sales tax measures passed to help with this, but we can be really grateful for the ones we do have, because they have done a lot of good and they'll continue to do a lot of good. But we have to be careful to keep those protected so that they will continue to fund the projects and fund the things that we really need to have done, because they do have a sunset. Measure H was put in for 30 years. Measure L was timed to sunset at about the same time. So we're about halfway through our Measure H money. So if we need to be very careful with it and make sure that it's wisely used and used for good projects, and the same with Measure L. Because when time comes to that they do sunset, we need to have enough public support that we can ask them to continue these Measure H's and Measure L for our sales tax. The city lives on sales tax. If we were to ask only our ratepayers to pay all of the projects that have been done with Measure H and Measure L, it would not have happened. So I'm not going to like paying this any better than anybody else, but I can support it.
Yeah.
Good evening again, Kathy Lishman. It's a good thing we have Measure L and Measure H. The one thing that is kind of confusing to people is that Natalie can tell us what our rates are going to increase to, but it just depends so much on how much water you use. And people are thinking, well, I'll pay that amount, but then the price of each CCF goes up too. So I don't know if there's a way of letting people know based on what they're using now, what they can expect, but maybe it doesn't matter because it'll happen anyway. But as far as, the rate increases, it just depends on how much water you use. And it depends on which level you're on the sewer part.
All right. If there's no further public comment, I will bring it back to the council.
Disappointing. I've been through two of these now, thank you, and none of them are easy. One of the things, though, I'd like to stress, and I checked this with Mr. Warren here, one of the reasons why that first year of both of them actually is high is because we have not raised rates. Now, I know people will not believe that, and we need to just keep telling them they won't believe it because they don't want to believe it, because their water bill goes up and down. So they think, oh, they're raising my rates. They hear it all the time down on the first floor. You're raising my rates every year. It's like, no, we have not raised rates since 2022. So I've discussed this with Mr. Warren, and to the degree that it is practicable, we do not want to let time lapse between the time that the 5 years expires and we're having this exercise. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why it happened, and I'm not blaming anybody. Because on the other end of this, when I did this in 2018, we hadn't raised rates for a long time. It had been a while. And that was rough. Because you come back to the public, who always thinks that they always think they're getting charged more money, but they're really not. They're operating in the zone, and they're convinced. And so one of the things I'm going to really harp on is coming up with a process so that we are not letting this thing go too long. Because you'd be paying more today, but that increase to next year would not be as high because you'd been kind of working your way up through the inflation ladder. Anyway, just my own thing. Thank you to staff. Thank you to everyone who put this together. Thank you for public comment. Really appreciate it. None of this is taken lightly, not from me. I can I don't like paying my water and sewer bill. I am blessed that my wife and I are in a position where it doesn't hit in our budget. I know full well there are people in this town that it will. And we should never lose sight of that. And I know my compatriots up here know that. And the folks out there need to know that when we make these decisions, it's because they're difficult, but they have to be made because you have to run your systems. And it just turns out, it just ends up costing people more money. So anyway, those are my feelings. I think it's very well done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody that was involved. Thank you. On the paperwork side of it to get us to this place. Option 2. Obviously, you can. Option 2.
Any other comments? I mean, I also agree we should go with option 2, which, implement whatever possible savings we can, and people have control over whether they pay with a credit card or an ACH if they're going to pay online, and they have other payment options. So I kind of like doing whatever we can to keep it as low as we possibly can.
And I think former Mayor, Councilmember Lishman is correct in one regard, and that is, but many regards, all sorts of regards, but one, the most important, and that is maybe having some information is, because everybody will look at the cheapest one and they think, oh, that's what I'm paying, and then they use more water. We really need to, I know we have that period of time when we do the water thing in the winter. I think we need to be a little bit more clear with the public on exactly, I know it's a rolling thing, but these dates are when it happens. And then having some information that if you are at the next level, it's going to cost this much. If you use more than the minimum, it's going to, just some ballpark. You could have a high, medium, low, whatever, to give that information. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know looking at that, I'm low, so I'm below that, but I'm one person living in my house, so I don't have a ton of water usage or sewer usage.
I just want clarification that you're talking about option 2 that was presented in the presentation, not option 2 on our agenda as you're trying to move forward.
Option 2 in the presentation of the 2.5%.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, no,
And
like I said,
getting rid of the leak thing.
Yeah.
And the,
Okay, like I said-
changing the leak thing to once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Option 2.
that's how it was phrased in the staff report.
Presented by staff.
I will move option 1, approve staff's recommendation.
Yes. To do option 2.
Yeah. Did you?
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a first and a second. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carter?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Yarbrough?
Aye.
Vice Mayor No?
Aye.
Mayor Gottberg?
Aye. All right, great. We're going to move on to item 12.3. Acknowledge and file the new Click2Gov online business licenses tax software demonstration and report. Ms. Tornicasa.
Really cool. Oh, look at that.
Good evening, Mayor Gottberg and City Council members. Natalie Tornicasa, Interim Director of Finance, presenting 12.3. The purpose of this report is to provide City Council and the public a demonstration on the new Click2Gov online business license tax software. So some real quick background. For several years, the City Council staff and the public have desired software that would provide online access to active business license information and the ability to renew business licenses online. Over the past several months, staff has worked collaboratively with Central Square to test the online business license functionality, which includes searching for a license, renewing a license, and paying for them. Like Click2Gov utility online bill payments, customers can create a new user profile to log in and easily access their business accounts. Staff anticipates that by implementing the Click2Gov software for business licenses, the city will continue to gain efficiencies in the processing of routine payments. Currently, the city has over 400 active business licenses for this fiscal year. Before I jump into the demonstration, I want to personally thank Patty Elhaj, our accounting supervisor, who's been instrumental in getting this software up and running. She's here. Thank you, Patty. Also, Siri Cleveland, accounting assistant 2, who has actually been testing the software and processing payments for the last 2 weeks. So thank you to both of them, and let's go ahead and get started. So you can access the business license Click2Gov portal from the City of Placerville website, and it's in 2 locations. So if you go to Government and then finance, you'll see business license. Click on that. You can read up per our city code. There's the application, and then there's for online business license information or to pay or renew a license, please click here. So if you click, if the citizen clicks here, it's going to direct them directly to the portal. The second, and actually the more easier way to access the portal, is if you go back to the home page, and residents are already very familiar with this button, make a payment. If you click on that, you will have the option to click utility bill payments or business license payments. And then that directs you to the Click2Gov website for business licenses. So once you get to the landing page, the top menu bar, so you've got the Contact Us button. If you click on that, you can email finance@cityofplacerville.org if you're having any technical issues or you have questions. You can also set up a new user account, just like Click2Gov utility, and then you can log in. For this demonstration, I'm going to focus on the left menu bar. So if you click on City of Placerville, it's going to direct you back to the City of Placerville website. So the cool features and really what's unique about the Click2Gov business license is the license information and renew a license. So the biggest thing is you can log in and look up license information or renew your license, or you don't even need to create a login. You can simply do it just on the site. So if we click on license information, so for license inquiry, there's several search by options. You can do business name, business owner name, business address, zip code, phone number, things like that. For this exercise, we'll do business name. And then Patty and I created a test business, so I'm just going to type in test.
I'm going to tell them to use mine.
So I clicked on test, and you'll see right here we've got a test Click2Gov. On that. And then it says payment pending, but if I click on this, which is the license number, so it's always going to start the year, so this one's 2025. And so it'll show some public, basic license information. It's going to give the business owner the option to renew with this easy button here, or pay any outstanding fees. If I click on pay fees, it's going to tell how much is owed. So total charges, $75.47. I can easily click on pay bill. And I can have a receipt emailed to me.
It's okay.
And then it's going to allow you to pay credit card. And then you just submit your payment. So pretty straightforward there. If I go back to license information, and say I just wanted to test a current business in the city limits, and I could type in Home Depot. So I can search. And then you'll see this first one pops up, Home Depot USA. You can click on that. And then it's going to show you some of the history of that business. So you can see that the license was renewed in 2019 all the way up through 2025, and they currently have an active business license. This is actually going to help other departments in the city. When they look for this information, they'll have access to it as well. And then you can go to renew a license, and you just simply type in your license number if you just want to pay your bill. So in this example, 258712. Okay, so there is going to require a PIN number, and every business owner on their renewal statement will get their unique PIN number, so they, as well as informational handout, really encouraging them to pay online. So type in the PIN number. So this one has an outstanding balance. You can pay the outstanding balance before you can renew your license. But here's where you can renew your license, and also in license information, you can renew your license. And the one other great feature about this Click to Gov is it is gonna, if you have a utility account and you already have an account on Click to Gov, it's gonna combine them. So you can access both your utility account and your business account. So that really concludes the demonstration. Today, staff is recommending that you acknowledge and file the new Click to Gov business license online portal report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Are there any questions from the council?
Very good.
None? Are there any public comments on this item?
Kathy Lishman, this is kind of a question I asked Dave in an email, but for instance, when people pay their business license online, are they going to be charged that 2.5% also? And I know that people sign up for classes, you know, for the recreation department online. Will everybody who pays the city with a credit card be paying the 2.5%?
We're working in that direction. That's a good question.
Okay, great question. Currently, there's no plan to charge a 2.5% transaction fee other than on their utility bill.
All right. I see no further public comment, so I will bring it back to the council. I think this is a receive and file, so unless anybody wants to make further
I would like to address former council member Lishman's comment there. Right now, we are not. We're kind of taking baby steps on this whole thing, and some of the software right now we need to instigate stuff. I'm not against just having that discussion for other things that go on in the city, okay? But right now we're just kind of like, let's do it for the water and sewer, and then we'll figure it out for other stuff. At least that's my personal feeling about it. I've had many discussions with the city manager on this, and that. And there's some areas where it means more than others, and we have to kind of noodle through all that too. Anyway, that's my personal feeling.
All right, we will go ahead and move on to item 13, council reports from other agency meetings, starting with El Dorado County Transit Authority.
All right. So, yes, we did meet. We had new elections. We now have a new chairperson, which would be Supervisor Veerkamp, and a new vice chairperson, which would be Councilmember No. And then we basically went from there and did a couple of action items. Approved an increased allocation of equipment technician 1-2 from 3 full-time equivalent to 4 full-time equivalent. So the Transit Authority is now fully staffed again compared to where they were during COVID and after COVID. And that's pretty much it.
All right, El Dorado County Transportation Commission.
We elected a new chair and vice chair, and our chair now is Lori Parlin, and I am the vice chair, reprising my role of vice chair. I did have to remind them, though, that the last time I was the vice chair of the Transportation Commission, I lost the election and never actually got to be the chair of the Transportation Commission, but it only hurts a little.
But wait. As soon as you came back on, you were automatically the chair.
That's true, so it kind of, there was a synchronicity. Serendipity. In any event, thank you for the clarification. We looked at the OWP, that's the overall work program for the Transportation Commission for next year. And that's just a document. It's a great document. You should always read them. They're really cool. It just basically lays out all the work, budgeting, everything that they're going to do for the next fiscal year. It starts on July 1st, 2026. So we looked at the draft of that. There's a big process. It gets approved in May. And we discussed a couple of things about our executive director in closed session, which I can't talk about.
The one thing we authorized, the US 50 Wildlife Collision
Mitigation
Project.
True.
And if that moves forward, it'll all be paid with grants, so.
Yeah, wildlife conservation.
Yeah, maybe another tunnel.
All right.
Wildlife.
LAFCO.
What is that?
We did meet. The Diamond Springs El Dorado Fire District merger moved to its second to last step. So congratulations to Chief Cordero and everybody involved in that. That was amazing. And that was the major outcome of that meeting.
Okay.
All right, Saquon?
We had a transportation committee meeting last week. We talked about a lot of things, transit. It's all going to heck. Down in Sacramento, our transit's fantastic. And we don't have a board meeting till next week.
All right, Pioneer Community Energy.
We did not meet.
All right, Placerville Fire Safe Council. We did meet a couple of items. One is we changed our bylaws to allow for alternate members. So if any member of the public would like to join the board as an alternate, please feel free to contact me, or you can reach out to David Zielinski to do that. And then we talked about the workshop that we had here and the Weber Creek project. And then they also will have a booth if people want to go out at the Battle of the Badges event. So there'll be a Placerville Fire Safe. If you want to get more information from them there, they will be there. And Opportunity Knox.
We did meet, and we got an update on the current and future navigation center scenario. I would encourage everybody that wants more information on that to watch the presentation given to the Board of Supervisors on January 27th. It is very interesting.
Right. Would any members of the public like to comment on our meetings? All right, then. We will bring it back then. Item number 14, request for future agenda items. Does anybody have a request for a future agenda item? None? All right, so city manager and staff reports, are there any? Nope. You guys can read your upcoming agendas. Item 16 are on the list, and we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 7:35 p.m.